guess to tell about my career, I guess we have to go way back.
Yeah.
Really far.
I was
yeah. To be honest with you folks, I stumbled into my career. Unfortunately, I wasn't necessarily as focused or understanding to what I was doing, but I was actually very happy that I had gotten involved in what I got involved in. My career is somewhat diverse in nature in terms of I've worked in almost every major department of a large corporation, starting from design engineering, working in manufacturing, working in the field, in sales and consulting and professional services. The only area I really haven't worked in would be product support, doing like break fix type stuff. So in each of my roles, in each of those areas, I held a technical role, foremost a technical role, but I also did some managerial type of things too within the technical organizations. So I'll kind of walk you through that a little bit. I have a bachelor's and master's degrees in computer engineering. Unlike computer science, computer engineering is kind of a sub area of electrical engineering. So I was trained to do both electronics work as well as to write code, system level code. And that was something when I came out of college, for at least my bachelor's, I wanted to try to maintain. In my senior year, I worked in design engineering for Digital Equipment Corporation, and I was a software quality engineer. In that role, basically, I was responsible for troubleshooting and making sure that basically new products that were being produced by the company functioned the way they were supposed to function, and would identify anything that didn't function to expectation or oddly. So that was a role that I just kind of got my feet wet into understanding the industry, so to speak, because in college they don't really teach you how the industry operates. And there's a lot more to it than just having technical skills. When I left that role, I went into manufacturing as a manufacturing engineer. And that's where I really got a real good taste and a real good understanding about the IT industry in terms of not so much having the technical skills, but the other skills that are needed to be in that kind of role. Technical skills are great and kind of nice to have, but the other skills you need to have to be able to provide value to the organization. I was fortunate in my when I first went into manufacturing. I went into manufacturing as a test engineer. For me, that was an awesome role because what I did was I designed automatic test equipment to be used while producing the product. In this case, they were disk drives and tape drives. So I would actually design testers that would be on the manufacturing floor. And along with that, I was also responsible for designing an automatic data collection system that would collect data from those testers and store them away to be used, to be referred to later on if need be. So with that, there was a lot of responsibilities because unlike engineering, manufacturing, they're very demanding. They're very demanding. I mean, manufacturing, if you cause any kind of delays or interruption in the manufacturing process, that's not a good thing. People, you will be isolated very quickly. You'll be singled out very quickly. So not only did I understand how to do my job for the technical aspect of being able to design and develop those testers, but I also had to learn how to introduce them, if you will, into the manufacturing process. You have a lot of folks in the manufacturing process that like English was a second language. All they did was run a particular station in a manufacturing process, and they didn't know a lot about what they were doing or more or less what it contributed to in the whole. So I had to learn how to communicate with these folks in a level that was not demeaning to them, but got them to understand what they were working and dealing with. And with that being said, I also had to learn how to manage the managers, the people who were managing the process, because they would once again, be very demanding and expect a lot of things. And some things, were reasonable, but some things were not reasonable. And had to learn how to manage those guys and get them to understand or at least work with you to get the things done that need to be done. So, so one thing I definitely learned early in that process was that my technical skills was great, but I had to learn how to be somewhat political, and I hate being political. So that so that was something that I had to kind of get used to. In fact, I'm still not used to it. I don't like to do it, but I learned how to do it enough to get the job done.
Yeah.
And your mileage may vary. So when we look at my career, especially when I started very early, coming out of college, up until the first 10 years or so, I mainly spent it in manufacturing, and I learned a lot of things, as I mentioned. Yeah. So, and like I said, those skills, those social skills came into play now. During my time, and I'm not gonna tell you my age, but I'm sure you can figure it out. The recent point in time in the U.S. where manufacturing was going offshore. And it was basically being, it wasn't cost effective to manufacture things in the United States. So during that period of time, I did a shift and I went out into the field and I went into consulting, professional services. Once again, my technical skills was very important here, but also very important here, learning how to be a consultant, learning how to consult, learning how to gain people's trust to listen to what I got to say. From a technical perspective, my career has always evolved around data. You heard me mention earlier about the data collection systems that I did in manufacturing. Those just evolved and got more sophisticated as I continue to evolve through manufacturing. But I also dealt with data on another level too, with respect to data being shared exchange between applications. What I learned, which was kind of a bummer, but you realize these things, is that even when you have people who code the standards, there's enough level for interpretation of the standards where you don't have always the same level of consistency that you would like. So, as an example, in those early days, there was a standard called Hodges, which was basically a data format specific standard for developing CAD, basically design, computer-aided drawings. And there were a lot of sophisticated tools out there that have been used by people to basically design things, such as, designing a car. Those guys use a lot of CAD tools to design the body, to design various parts of the car, make sure the dimensions right, they fit just right, all that kind of good stuff. But when they send those drawings down to the manufacturing facility to be manufactured, manufacturing uses a different tool to manufacture with, and their interpretation of the IGES standard could be slightly different from the tool that was used to do the design. And they got to find a way to bridge that gap. So I've worked with data as finite as that, and that was kind of the role I took when I initially got into the field in terms of consulting to engineering organizations around their data formats and how they use data between design and manufacturing. And with that, I evolved into document management systems, early generation document management systems. So learning about the application of these things, helping others, became what I had to do. So as a result, I had to get a lot more training, not technical training, but consultative training. How to communicate, how to present, how to facilitate, how to gather information, even how to write. How to write a report to give to somebody after you've done some work for them. How to write it up in a way in which is presentable to them. Not my high school writing, which wasn't very good to begin with. So there were a lot of those other skills outside of technical skills that were very necessary for me to be able to be successful in my career. Without them, I could not show the value of what I do know technically, or be effective in helping others, because you can know it all, but if you can't communicate in a way in which they can understand it and receive it and leverage it, it's of no value to them. So that's what gives it the value. And that's not the only value it has, but without it, value can't be recognized. But shortly after that, I ended up picking up all of Canada. So I had Canada and the Midwest. Then I ended up picking up a strategical managerial role as strategic data warehousing manager for North and South America for digital. And with that, at the time when I picked up that role, and I think I got it probably because they couldn't get no one to take it. We were behind, way behind. What I ended up having to do, which was really fun for me, was I had to spend a lot of time in France, down in Nice, to catch up, because they were at least about a year and a half ahead of us. And so I was trying to wreck the whole data warehousing business for digital as quickly as I could for North and South America. So I spent a lot of time in Nice. And this is about in the mid '90s. He watched Super Bowl over there. So so with that being said, with that's when I started getting more obviously international exposure, which is also very, very valuable these days, especially as more global. We're getting as small as this world is getting. Having international exposure is definitely a desirable thing to do if you can get some. So at that point, I got a chance to do that, but I also got a chance to develop training classes with the training department. I got so much exposure in doing that role because these are people I didn't have to deal with before. I was just a technical resource. I knew these things were out there and existed, but they were nothing I had to worry about because I was just handing things to folks. They were handing things back to me. But now I had to be more concerned about what they were doing and why they were doing it and how they were doing it and whether it was effective or not for the people that would be using it in the field, which is I guess where my experience came in. But that's really kind of launched me into more of a full-blown managerial career in professional services. Then the next major transition came in my career where I had to leave digital. I left digital in the late '90s, primarily because I was concerned about my career longevity. Things were, that time, things were very volatile in the industry. You didn't know whether companies were going to exist or not exist. They're going to be bought out, not bought out. And I've been with digital my whole career up until that point. I was looking at 40 over the horizon, and I felt that I needed to definitely work for another company other than digital, or else it'd be kind of hard if I'm forced to. Someone said, "Well, one thing is this one company. How could why should we take a chance on you?" So I felt that my window was getting smaller and smaller for making a transition out to show that I can do it somewhere else, not just the digital way. Because digital was believe me, if I had my druthers, I'd work for digital my whole life. Never worked for a company like that ever again in my life. But that's a whole nother matter. But I made a conscious decision to change companies because I consider my longevity of my career. So I ended up going over to Cambridge Technology Partners. I'm not sure how many folks are familiar with that company. They were purely a consulting firm. They didn't produce products, they just had consulting. I was there to help them build their data warehousing division. They pioneered rapid application development. So to be able to learn RAD actually was very useful for me on the overall. One philosophy that I didn't mention earlier, but it's a good time to mention now, is I do believe in being somewhat diverse. And one of the ways of adding value is to be able to know more than one way to go about approaching things. So, depending upon the right situation, I may say, this is where they're doing a RAD approach as opposed to doing a waterfall approach. So later on in my career, I learned Agile. So once again, certain situations I would say, I might want to do Agile approach. But the point I'm making there is that I'm continually adding tools to my toolbox. And these tools to be competitive with one another. But when it comes time for me to work with a client, I add value because now I'm pursuing across a spectrum of possibilities for them. So I'm going to pretty much stop there. I mean, I could evolve. I mean, management is not nearly as much fun, exciting as the technical stuff, but I think that's a good place to stop.